What's good, Liberators? Vengus here, and this is Dx2 Demon Review, and today we are talking about the Frost Rockin', the Power Armor, aka the Demonica, the Fairy. Demonee-Ho! Jack Frost equipped with his own mini armor, aka Power Armor, aka Demonica. Rumor has it that he participates in operations all over the world and has a legendary 100% mission completion rate, as does any good gamer. He originally donned the armor because he admired it, but after long, hard training, he emerged as the perfect soldier. He may look as cute as the lovable Jack Frost, but do not underestimate him, because he'll make you stop crying or laughing, because when Demonee-Ho sees red, all you see is black. Let's check him out. And he's got decent enough strength. What is that, 192 off rip? Can pump that up, and you should, because his damage output is somewhat lacking in his base form. And I slapped my other 20 Mitamas into his agility, which is meh at 154, but you can pump that to 174 and get some good speedster teams going with him on board, which is how I ran him, which is how I envision him. I did a PvP video with him fairly recently. I will link that down below so you can see what I did with them. And I slapped the last 10 into luck to help with that crit rate. And I said screw vitality, because Demonee-Ho struck me as an all or nothing, balls to the wall, offensive fighter. He knows physical attacks, which is a thing, and nothing more. Skills, the transferable epitome of aggression, plus 15% to physical hit rate, and a minus 45% chance of receiving status ailments. Both things very, very, very useful in PvP, especially if you got your physical demons. You need that phys hit rate, because a miss equals death. And for his first passive unique skill, the Desperate Hit, which is why I wanted to run him on a speedster physical team so badly, activates the following chain effect at the end of your turn: inflicts almighty physical damage with a power of 25, 30% crit rate, 4 to 8 times on random enemies. This is based off of physical attack. Of course, it can crit, it can miss, and counter effects do not work upon it. This desperately needs a buff, because its damage output is lackluster, even if you do the multi-hit and go all 8 times. This should be 8 times, full stop. It shouldn't have any multi-hit variants. It should just be 8 times. There are other demons who do a cheap shot attack in this same vein, where it triggers at the end of a turn or at the end of an enemy's turn, that does far more damage to this. It's a comparable skill. It should be buffed up accordingly to at least meet that standard, because even if you hit all 8 times, critting every single time, the damage output is still lacking behind those other chain effect end of turn abilities that other demons in 2021 possess. And for his other unique skill, the Iron Judgment, inflicts physical damage, power of 150, so that too could use a bit of a buff, but with a 50% crit rate on a single enemy and an 80% chance to inflict bind upon your enemies. This skill does have Phys Pierce. He does not have physical pierce built in. Iron Judgment does. And this, again, the power is very underwhelming, and they justify that by giving it the crit rate and the 80% chance to bind up your enemies. But even with those nice little tack-ons, you should up this up a little bit, because its damage is shockingly bad. I was amazed at how low it hit for when I ran him in PvP, And even though I only have a basic variety, no panel, Demonee-Ho, I was expecting a little bit better. And you needed to hit a little bit better if you're going to rock him in PvP. As it stands now, you have to use this as a bind. Like this, the damage is nice, but this is to bind up an enemy that's going to annoy you. Your Ji-Wang moves, or any of your chain effect demons, who the only way to stop the chain effect is to bind them up. But unfortunately, most of those demons will come with null bind, or people will put null bind on them, fully aware of bind's ability to neuter those chain effects. One big bonus to this is that when fully leveled, you get plus 20% to damage and minus 1 MP cost of the skill, bringing it down to a paltry 4 MP per hit. So even in the Age of Undead Alice, you can rock him with War Brands and still rock out turn 1 without having to worry. So there's a little something there. There's a little something, and you need all the physical attack you can pile onto this guy that you can get. For his archetypal skill, got him in Psychic for Butcher, plus 20% damage to skills that target all or random enemies. This does improve his Desperate Hit. It does not improve Iron Judgment. However, I would have liked a skill that helped with both, but alas. And as for his transferables, I gave him Speedster because I put Speedster on everything. If you're running fast, you need to be as fast as can be, because Speedster teams are everywhere. And if you get the jump on them, you win. Just make sure you're not giving up your offensive stank for all that speed, because I have run into some paltry Speedster teams that couldn't even put down my paper-thin defense. If you outspeed my team, it should be an instant W for you. If your team cannot put down my team with literally 0 defensive capabilities, you're doing it wrong. Let me tell you. And I also gave him Endure because when I was running him, I assumed he's unpaneled. His HP is really, really low. Oh, wow. 1,200 I was rocking with this guy. And I figured a Sisters team would cheap shot him into Oblivion. An alt-cert team would cheap shot him into Oblivion. So I slapped that Endure on there because I wanted him to stay alive for that Desperate Hit to finish off the last of whoever was left standing once my Speedster team's turn 1 ran wild. I avoided damage boosting skills just because, like I said with Butcher only applies to multi-hit skills, so it only works on Desperate Hit. If I were to give him Physical Amp, it would only apply to Iron Judgment and not Desperate Hit. That's how those skills kind of work. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is Berserk, which increases your damage by 10%, I believe it is, and the damage you take increases by 20%. So that works all across the board, but only a 10% boost. I figure Speedster Endure would serve me a little better. And for you, hey, if you want that Iron Judgment one-shotting people, you're going to need that Fizz Amp, that Fizz Boost, anything to get that up, because its damage is subpar. And hey, if you want to rely on the bind, Epitome of Madness, Insanity, that could be a thing. If you need, if you're going for status ailments, though, you really need to devote everything into that stat ailment hit, or else you're going to get snubbed, especially in PvP where people come correct with their ailment defense. As for brands, when I ran him with War Brands and Speed Brands. Fairly obvious, and if I were you, that's the way I'd go, though there's an argument for Sick Brands. Absolutely, if you just want to rely on him for binding. But if you're splitting the difference between his physical attack and his ailment infliction, you're going to be subpar at both, which, in my experience, never works great in Shin Megami Tensei game. Not just in DX2, but Shin Megami Tensei overall. You generally want to, you want variety, do it in your individual demons, but have each individual demon hyper focus on doing the one thing exceedingly well. As for the panels, panel 1, 15% to Fizz hit rate, fan-freaking-tastic, especially for PvP. Miss equals death, so bueno. Panel 2 activates the following chain effect after Iron Judgment is activated. Enters a state of might. This is really cool because you go turn 1. Your Demonee-Ho is slow in speedster terms. So odds are if you're running him on a speedster team, he's going last. So he'll probably only get 1 turn unless you got your Hero Masakatos and you're not getting double stands, which is rare in this day and age. So he goes 1 time, Iron Judgments, mites up, and that means his desperate hit, guaranteed crits every single turn. But the thing about that is, with the way you can spike your crit rate in 2021, you can pretty much guarantee him critting on all those just through natural critation on your brands, running him with Cardicea or Asura Lord who boost your crit rate up, stuff like that. If you run Kangaroo Boxer or Zana and you go first, they both give you a bonus to your critical hit percentage. So there are other ways to ensure crits go off, but hey, this is nice. This should be charge. He should charge for this, so his desperate hit is boom, 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 boom. That would be big money. Sega, Demonee-Ho deserves better. He deserves a buff. You know it, I know it. No one runs him, and this is why. Fix this now. Power Armor Frost deserves better. And for the big money, Panel 3, plus 20% to physical and almighty damage, getting the best of both worlds there. Hammering home both his unique skills. And if you're going to run this guy to any effect, oh god, does he need it. He needs a damage buff. He needs it bad. Anything you can do to improve that on this boy, get her done. And before we calls it a day, let's check out what other options are available for this Power Armor Madman. Because he's a soldier, right? Contingencies, plan Bs, he's all about them. So let's see what's good. The Origami archetype, myriad arrows, physical damage 2 to 5 times. With the power of 65. Hey, not bad. If this thing hits full power, technically it does more power damage than Hasutobi. So hey, bueno there, but I hate random effect skills. They're only really useful if you're focusing on a single target, and in PvP, you're not focusing on a single target. So, I'd go for the Iron Judgment over this. As for his Protector archetype, charge. Enters a state of charge. Next physical attack damage by 125%. This is cool. I can see it if you just want to have him have his desperate hit double up. You know, you just charge up with him, and then desperate hit goes off at the end of the turn. Boom, 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 boom. But again, 4 to 8 times. So you got that multi-hit variable RNG nonsense. Another layer of RNG that you've got to worry about. I hate unreliable damage. I like for my skills to go off and do what I know they're going to do every single time. Multi-hit attacks bother me. I don't like them. If there's enough RNG to deal with in the game, adding it into your own physical attacks, or any attack really, it just makes for another layer of randomness that you don't need in your life. And for the Psychic archetype, which I like best of all, Butcher, a guaranteed plus 20% to his desperate hit. We discussed that. And for the Elementalist archetype, Repel Fizz. Okay, you run him on a Demiurge team. God knows why you would, but you can. Hey, there it is. Turns his null into a repel, and that is a thing that you could do if you wanted to in Bizarro World. And that about wraps it up for the Tech Giant. All right, this is a Frost for the modern day. This is a man who knows the value of technology and engineering, and he uses it to dominate his foes. 100% mission completion rate. Don't get captured.